What's up, everybody? We're going to wait just a minute to let everybody come in. Hello, hello. Thank you all for coming. I'm really excited about today. We are going to wait another 40 seconds or so, and then we're going to get started. Please remember, retweet, share this on your feed. Let's get as many people in here as we possibly can. I'm really excited about the guest tonight. I think he's going to be really insightful, and he's somebody that I really look up to and have learned from over the years. And I'm just excited for y'all to hear him talk. So we'll see how that goes. But again, retweet it, share it, repost it wherever you're consuming it. We're super happy to have you guys. All right, welcome to CP Live. It is 9:30 on the East Coast. We're super excited to have you guys here, and I am really excited about my first guest. He's somebody that I've followed on Twitter for quite some time, and we've actually shared some talking with DMs and stuff, and then phone calls, and he's tried some of our things out. And at first, I don't think we really saw eye to eye. But now I think there's a lot more understanding between the two of us, and I'm super excited to have him. So we are going to have Javi De Jesus in. He's a former minor league baseball player with the Twins and the Cubs. He's the founder of the Fort Wayne Diamondbacks and the Diamond Baseball and Softball Academy. He's the director of pitching there. He's also the pitching coach at Ivy Tech Community College, which is Division II junior college. And what's so exciting about Javi is not only did he play at a high level, almost all the way to the big leagues, got to Double A, I believe. Mm-hmm. But he also coaches youth athletes as well as college athletes. So he's got a really good understanding of exactly what makes guys tick. Javi, welcome, man. Thanks for coming.
My man Chaz, it's great to be here with you, brother.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you. So talk to me a little bit about your experience as a player and how maybe early on in your instruction career that shaped what you're doing versus now as you're a more seasoned instructor, both at the college and youth level.
Well, my whole life actually goes back to Puerto Rico. I was born in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Learned how to play baseball in the island as a young boy. Down there, we live, breathe, eat, sleep baseball no matter what, because that's basically our national sport. Throughout my youth and everything, I was blessed with a really good arm. I was blessed with somebody who threw hard. But then as I got older, people started catching up with me a little bit on my velocity and everything. And I had to do something a little bit more. So, I started hitting the weights a little bit. I didn't take it too seriously. And I did enough out of high school that I was able to go to University of Louisiana Lafayette in 1990. And then from there, I got introduced to the weightlifting. There wasn't all the different things on weightlifting that there is now, all that information that there is available now. Back then is, hey, there's a squat rack, go squat. Hey, there's a bench press, go lift the gym. So basically, I am not blessed with Kyle Farnsworth bigness and everything. I'm only 5'10" if I'm lucky. And when I got drafted, I was 178 pounds. So I needed to find ways to see how well can I use my stuff to be able to succeed at the next level. So in '92, I got drafted out of college. Probably the best year I ever had in my career all the way around. Went 13-0 my junior year in college, All-American, all kinds of all this, all that, and everything like that. I got drafted, got a chance to play in the Olympics with a Puerto Rican national team, which was a lot of fun. And then when I got to pro ball, that's when finally I learned how to truly be a pitcher when I got all the way up there. I learned the hard way that, you better have an idea on how to call a game. because if you don't know how to call a game, you're done. You can't have people call the games for you at that level. Because in college, I had the pitchers call for me, and I didn't know how to pitch. One of the biggest lessons I learned from Rick Tomlin, my pitching coach, he said, on a 2-1 count, what do you throw here? Fastball. And I got somebody looked at him and was like, are you on crack? Why do you want to throw fastball 2-1 count as a hitter's count? What's the hitter's count? Oh boy, I had to run polls for days just asking that question. So after my career was over with, one thing, actually, there was two different instances that happened. One, when I played in Lehigh Valley, that actually taught me how to pitch. And of all people, the person who actually taught me how to pitch was Ruben Sierra, of all people. I got the great chance to actually face him 4 times that summer in 2000. And the first time he went 3 for 5 off me with 2 triples and a double, just lit me up. And that night we went to a little wharf in Atlantic City, and he goes, he speaks really broken English. So when he started, we also spoke Spanish, but he said, Javi, you got good changeup. Why don't you throw changeup? Why don't you throw the cambio? It's like, because I didn't think I needed to throw a fastball to set it up. It's like, no, I was looking for that. You should have thrown a changeup. It's like, what do you mean? Let's talk about it. 5 hours we stayed in that wharf talking about what the meaning of approach was to hitters, and what that meant for me as a pitcher, to be able to see what is he trying to do against me.
And
And that
that's
complete.
and that's the really great part about your experience. And that's why
Mm-hmm,
I think what's so fascinating about guys that have played professional baseball, that are willing to put the
mm-hmm,
time into educating people like me.
absolutely.
And you get all this time to talk shop. You're playing cards. You're on the bus. You're eating.
Mm-hmm,
Live it. And everybody's got the same idea. They all want to get to the show, right?
absolutely.
Not
Absolutely.
everybody can do it, as we know. Not everybody
Mm-hmm,
can make it. There's only a select few.
right.
But the few that make it all the way, or the few that get close, the conversations you have, the immersion you have in the game. I
Mm-hmm,
compare it to, if you want to learn another language. If I didn't want to learn Spanish, and if I just go to Spain and I just live there, I got no
mm-hmm.
choice. I'm
Yeah,
immersed
yeah,
in
you're
the
exactly
culture. I
right.
have no choice.
Exactly right.
There's so many times I can ask for the baño. I got to figure it out, you know? Exactly. So that's what you guys have. You're just immersed in it. So keep going.
Right.
That's so great.
Right, right. And and actually that same year, one of my roommates, his best friend was Jose Vidro, who played for the Expos at the time. So we went to Boston to go see Pedro Martinez pitch. And back then, unfortunately, we weren't blessed back then. I mean, here's how old school I am, bud. I had to buy those little disposable cameras at the gift shop at Fenway Park, and that's how I took my pictures. So I took random pictures of Pedro throwing, and when I had him develop, I looked at his mechanics. I'm like, wait a second, what's he doing here? And then he started. Then I put all the piece together, and it basically I took like snippet pictures of him throughout the course of the game that showed different aspects of his mechanics during the game. I'm like, oh, now I see what he's doing. Now I get what he's trying to do. And then I go back and look at my tapes when I pitch. I'm like, crap, I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so I was able to mix the two together. The next year in 2001, I started implementing a lot of what Pedro did, and a lot of, as far as body movement, body positioning, body posture, drive on the back leg, keeping the leg back, all that kind of jazz there. And I wound up that year going 14-6. In 22 starts, I had 166 innings pitched. I averaged 7 2/3 innings every time I got stepped on the mound, and not
Wow.
once did my arm ever hurt. Never
And
went on the disabled list like that. And I'm like, why couldn't I figure this out back in '92 when I first started? So that to me was my calling, that I'm not going to let anybody go through the stuff that I went through when I blew my shoulder out because of poor body movement.
And you know what's interesting is you are one of the 1% of the 1%, because not only could you play at a high level, you
Mm-hmm.
were smart enough to identify
Yep.
problems with what you were doing on your own.
Right.
And so kids today, they don't really watch baseball. I
Mm-mm.
mean, I ask kids who their favorite player is, and you'll hear Freddie Freeman around here. There are a lot of Braves fans.
Sure.
You'll hear a Tatis every once in a while, Mike Trout, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they're just saying it.
Right.
especially if you say Mike Trout and we're on the East Coast. Like they don't see
Hmm.
Mike Trout play. They don't know.
Nope.
So and Derek Jeter's probably more famous than the players are now.
Right.
So the kids don't watch the game the same way. I mean, you're so loved it so much. You're literally taking pictures, with a disposable camera to try to
Hmm.
figure out, man,
Right.
I gotta figure this out. I gotta make myself better.
Sure.
What do you think about why do you think some of the coaches you have didn't identify some of those flaws and like I don't want to say fix you, but
Right.
give you some different ideas to say, hey, maybe pitching like Pedro Martinez is a good idea,
Right.
and
Right.
you're not doing these things. Here's how you can do better.
Well, here's the thing, because I know a long time ago, back when Tom House was the pitching coach of the Texas Rangers, he had Bobby Witt, he had Nolan, he had Kevin Brown, he had Mitch Williams. I remember my dad bought for me his Pitching Absolutes, one of the first books that I ever got about pitching.
Yeah.
And and I apologize, Dr. Tom House. I always want to give people credit where credit is
Oh
due.
yeah.
So Dr. House, I actually got a chance to talk to him and say, hey, I remember the Pitching Absolutes like the back of my hand, because I read it every single day. I watched the videos every single day. But he himself will be the first to know that he was trying to teach everybody to throw like Nolan Ryan.
Right.
And people, I mean, Nolan Ryan is the absolute freaks of the freaks. There's nobody's going to ever be like him. So you can take snippets of what he does and learn to apply to what your ability is now. And
Right.
that's what I actually started learning a little bit more of. You can teach the principalities of body movement, internal, external rotations, leg drive, go down the slope when you're throwing your back hip and everything. We can talk about all those details, but how does that apply to your body? How does that apply to your ability? Because everybody's going to be different. So trying to make everybody's a cookie cutter, having a cookie cutter approach into how everybody needs to throw, that's my opinion why a lot of people didn't want to touch me. And another thing too, that when I'm throwing 95, 96 and I'm throwing a changeup at 70, 71, nobody's going to mess with me. That's what the first thing they thought of is like, well, when I looked at my video and looked at how I threw my changeup and versus how I threw my fastball, those are two totally different arm movements. So I was putting more pressure on my shoulder on my changeup than I was on a fastball, because I do remember for Fernando Valenzuela, he would turn that wrist over through that screwball. That's
Yeah.
how I threw my changeup. I made my changeup look like a right-hander's curveball. That's how good it broke.
That's awesome.
But I suffered the consequence for it, because I was doing something that worked for me, but eventually led to my demise as a ball player.
Right. And you can do things that are injurious and not even know you're doing it. Like something that
Correct.
might hurt you might work,
Right.
but if it hurts you,
Mm-hmm.
did it really work? The
Exactly
number
right.
one ability of an athlete is availability. You weren't available anymore when you're on the shelf. Like that's not how that
Exactly
works.
right. And
So
back then, if you get on the disabled list, that's the worst place you want to be, because if you're not out there pitching in the minors, you don't get a chance to get promoted. Somebody else is going to beat you to it, and that's
and
the reality back then of the minor leagues.
and they haven't invested in you the same way.
Nope,
You were a
exactly.
17th round draft pick, I
I was
believe.
17th round. I got five grand and a case of Bosco is what I got when I signed,
Yeah.
bro. That's all I got.
And so, and that's the thing people don't realize is there's 100 other guys similar to
Hmm.
you, maybe
Yeah,
or maybe not as talented, that would give anything to get that $5,000 and the case of Bosco, to get where you are,
absolutely, bro.
and
Absolutely.
they'll risk it to get the biscuit. I mean, they're going to go out there and throw till their
Mhm.
arm falls off at that chance at that lottery ticket in the
Right.
show. I mean, I totally understand that.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to, like, going, expanding that a little bit further, is that, when guys see that, it's like, well, I'm more talented than this kid is over here. I know I can throw better than this guy. I know I can hit better than this guy. I know I can feel better than this guy. So they start doing things that are completely out of the norm, out of what they're accustomed to. And they start coming up with these, well, this drill will really help you. This thing will really help you. This thing will really help you. It's like, so they try to do it to get the quick fix and not a long-term development of what the body's how the body's truly supposed to move. And
And that,
that's what I'm kind of seeing a lot of happening right now, on social media. I mean, it's like, Chaz, you and I can talk for hours about what's going on in baseball Twitter right now, but that's for another show. For later on, because we're not going to have too much time to do it tonight. But
no.
there's just too much. I think I guess the proper word to say is saturated, bro. There's too much saturation, and this drill will help you do this. This drill will help you do this. But wait a second, this drill also does this thing that'll help you do this, and then go and turns around and go this. And next thing you know, I'm thinking, how the kid's supposed to hit a pitcher? How's he
Yeah.
supposed to hit a pitch ball? Because he's thinking, well, I got to get this firm board thingy that's on the ground. That I got to kick back, and I got to do this. I got to get my body doing this, and I got to look like Aaron Judge and try to lift the ball up in the air. I'm like, what is going on here? It's like
Yeah. There's a lot.
there's no sensibility in teaching how to help a young boy or a young lady how to get the most out of their bodies when they're playing or practicing. And
You're exactly right.
that's been my biggest issue right now.
You're exactly right. And you mentioned the slide board and being like hitting on ice or something. And then
Exactly.
obviously everybody knows about, the snap it pool hall guy, and it's funny. He's actually in my book. I actually saw him teach once. I think that's why he doesn't like me very much, because the safest thing you could have been at that clinic was a baseball. None of them hit hard. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is. What you mentioned development, right? So a parent who doesn't have your expertise, or who hasn't
Right.
been in the game for 15 years teaching it like I have, right?
Mhm.
I'm just Joe Schmo trying to help my son who's striking out and he's crying in the car on his way home, right?
Yeah.
You get on Twitter and you see this, these gadgets and these
Yeah.
things and these ideas that
Mhm.
are usually completely unproven,
Right.
completely untested. What are some training tools that you like as a pitching coach, as a hitting coach, that you use in your facility? And I know you only work with your boys on hitting,
Right.
but talk to me about some things that you've tried that you think worked well, and then some things that you're like, man, that makes no sense.
Okay, I think for one of the main things that I do for hitting is I like to simplify everything as far as what how their hands are actually approaching the ball. But I'm gonna give you all the props in the world, my brother, because the Rebels rack was actually a tremendous godsend for my own two boys.
Thank you.
They finally understood that, yeah, they knew how to make contact, but the ball wasn't going anywhere. So I'm like, you know what? When I saw a couple of things on the rack, I'm like, that's when you and I started talking a little bit more about that. And then you sent me the video, you sent me some information. Then I looked at it. Then I bought a couple of them, and I looked at them, and I started messing around with myself. I was like, wait a second, wait, I'm doing this right. So I'm using it, and I'm actually turning. I'm like, so I'm going back. Okay, I gotta video myself. I gotta take a video of myself hitting. And I saw a video of myself hitting. I'm like, wait a second, I'm doing that. So my boys need to do that,
Right.
because yeah, I'm 5'10. I'm 50 years old. I can hit a ball a mile, but I can't hit a ball a mile unless my body's in a proper position to hit.
Yeah.
And
And I
I
think
was
a lot of people I think really misunderstand
Mhm.
rack. And maybe you did it first. I don't really
Oh,
know.
I did. I totally did, because I'm like, how is this really going to work? But when I actually tried it on for my own self, and then I saw the results for both my boys on how well they actually started turning their bodies more to get everything from the core to their legs engaged into the swing, and that
Right.
actually helped their hands free up to
Yeah.
basically go and stay connected through the swing itself. Was like it was like, oh, like the skies open and everything fell down from the sky. It was fantastic. It was awesome. So that's one thing that I started using a lot more of with all my boys that actually work on hitting. And one of them, I had a high school kid that said, "As a coach, I'm struggling. Hey, try this thing out right here." He tried it out. It's like, "Coach, that feels pretty good." The next day, he goes 3 for 4 with 2 home runs and a double. Go figure. So,
Hey, that's great.
so
Hey,
that's pretty cool.
and
Now,
those results are good, obviously. Yeah,
oh,
that's good.
absolutely, and I was so happy for him. And then after that, because what happened with not only my kids but also this other young man is that the confidence level skyrocketed. And whenever we as human beings, we tend to dwell on our mistakes. We tend to dwell on our failure. And once we dwell on failure, we're going to try and manipulate ourselves in our way of thinking that, well, if I do this, I can do this. It's like you're going around a stupid bed. It can't happen.
Right.
So, but once you start working on things that actually bring you success, and it feels good and it feels good to your body becomes hungry for it. And the more the body becomes hungry for it, you gain confidence. And in
Yeah.
baseball, you got to have confidence to be able to play, either hit or pitch or be on the field. If you don't have that confidence, that mental confidence already there, then go play something else.
And where does confidence really come from? In my opinion, it comes from trusting the training you're doing.
I agree.
Like this right now, like I'm not nervous talking to you. I don't know how many
Oh
people are
no,
watching this. I'm not nervous. You know why? Because I'm prepared.
exactly.
I feel good about
Yeah,
what I'm doing. I can use this software. I can
yeah,
write the questions out. I can have a good conversation with you because I'm not somebody who's like nervous about that.
sure.
And that's the thing. If you feel prepared when you step on the mound or when you step in the batter's box
Hmm.
because your training is sound,
Hmm.
then you can actually get into a real approach. You can actually
Right,
feel good about what you're doing instead of like, oh my God, I hope I don't strike out, which is
right.
the feeling that most kids actually have. They're trying to avoid failure instead of
Hmm.
going for success. And that's where people
Right. Exactly. And one of the main questions that I always ask my boys, and sometimes my kids, hopefully a couple of them are listening right now, but so one of the questions that I always ask them, how do you feel?
oh yeah.
How did that feel? What are you feeling now? How did that pitch feel? What did you feel to hear? And they get tired of me asking that, but I ask them, do you know why I ask you how you feeling? How do you know why I ask you that? And they go, no, coach. Like, let me tell you, because if you can't feel what you're doing, how do you know how to fix it if you're doing
Right.
something wrong? And if you don't know how to if you don't know how to fix it, that's where dialogue actually comes into play. And when
Right.
they actually say, "Well, coach, I'm feeling that my front side's pulling out." Oh, let me show you why your front side's pulling
Mhm.
out, and
Right.
that way you start the conversation to put it on them. So that way you're not only adding the conversation piece with the feel of it, but they start actually adding in. Well, I feel my front shoulder pulling out, and they understand in their head that why am I pulling out? Because my backside's doing this, and vice versa. So that way they're actually holding themselves accountable on the learning, almost like they're self-regulating themselves when they're on the mound or when they're at the plate. That way they understand how to do it instead of having a coach say, "Hey, throw strikes. Hey, you got to hit the ball." No, that's the last thing you want people to say.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. Don't do whatever you do. Don't do that. Just the kid's already nervous enough as it is. Leave him alone. When you're in the
Exactly.
dugout, then talk to him.
Right. And once again, this is CP Live. I'm here with Javi De Jesus, the founder of the Fort Wayne Diamondbacks, the Diamond Baseball and Softball Academy, and Ivy Tech Community College's pitching coach. Javi, this is great stuff. I love what you're talking about. What do you think? What do you think that a parent needs to understand with when they're trying to help their son or their daughter? And there's so
Mhm.
many things saturating social media, YouTube.
Yes.
What do you think? How do you think that they should filter the maybe the she gone side of it, which is like I played at a high level, but I'm not in player development, and we
Right.
did this 20 years ago,
Right.
versus the I never played and I'm in
Mhm.
player development and I just looked at a bunch of video. Right? They're very polar opposite.
Oh,
Right?
completely polar opposite. I
It's
agree.
kind of like I'm all mechanics or I'm all approach. You
Right.
know, how do we avoid that, and how do we blend the two together, and how would you give advice to people trying to figure this out?
Well, I think for me, something that I personally like to do this. I mean, if some people do, great. If not, I totally understand that. But something that I like to do on my first initial, um, I guess, lesson, or consultation that I have with my player, I always have mom or dad or both of them right behind the cage for me to actually for them to listen to me and what I'm telling them. And whenever the young son is actually doing their thing, I'm telling them I'm having to do this because of this. I'm having to do this because this is this. And the reason why I'm having them do this, and I pull a video on certain pitchers on certain, like maybe like a Pedro or a DeGrom or a Clayton Kershaw, whichever, doesn't matter who it is, Glasgow, doesn't matter. All pitchers have certain nuances that at certain points in their mechanics, they look alike per se. And you will need to find those little nuances in your son's body that'll help him get to that point. So let me
Sure.
show you what's going to be able to help him get to this point here. And once I go into that right there, I tell him a little bit of my backstory about, well, when I was pitching, I was doing this, And then when I actually did my research on myself and versus what I've actually seen out there, I seen that whenever I was pitching, I wasn't doing this particular motion, or I wasn't doing this or this or this or that. So basically, I actually give them almost like an education piece from that to see this is what happened here. Now, with a lot of guys, like for instance, for example, for you, Chaz, you didn't have the opportunity to play at the professional level after college. A lot
Correct.
of a lot of players don't. I know a lot of good players that never got that chance. I was blessed with that chance, and I thank God for that chance, because without that, I don't have my home, my family, and my boys. I don't have that.
Right.
But there's also things that people become very studious with. How what didn't I do for myself that I should have done? And that's where the research for yourself start to see, how can I actually make another player better than what I was, and how
Right.
can I actually translate all that information to parents, and what drills can I show parents that they can do with their child that'll help them maintain and actually grow and develop throughout the whole process. So
You're
for me,
exactly right.
I always have to have the parent engaged the whole time. If the
You're
parent's not
exactly
engaged, it's not going to work.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the parent's the client. They're the one paying. I mean,
Exactly.
like they're the
Bingo.
one paying. So, like at my
Bingo.
facility, we're playing music that the parents like. We got the
Hmm.
temperature where the parents like it. Don't get me
Yep.
wrong. I'm player centric as it gets, but we're
Hmm.
not playing ridiculous music in there with a bunch of moms and daughters in there. It's just
Nope.
not happening. So
Nope.
you have to recognize we, the instructor, work for the parent. The
Right.
player works for us.
Right.
And
Exactly.
our job is to get them to avoid the pitfalls that we found in our career, whether it's in
Hmm.
double A with an injury or
Yep.
in, you know, major college baseball where I realized I am not good enough to be here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, you
Right.
know, it's just one of those things. So we're trying to avoid those problems
Hmm.
and honestly give kids a cheat sheet on, hey, this is how you can get where you want to go faster.
Right.
Because efficiency is key in
Hmm.
whether it's throwing a ball, hitting a ball, or
Hmm.
teaching somebody to do those things.
Right.
If you're not efficient, you get fired, you know?
Exactly.
And that's
Completely
why we
agree.
measure so many things at Baseball Rebellion. I mean, every ball that's hit, every ball that's thrown, it's measured. So,
Hmm.
speaking of measurement, what are some of the technology things that you like in your facility or at your college with your players that you like to use to make sure that players are getting better so you can prove improvement to
Right.
that maybe skeptical parent or the player who's going through some stuff and you're trying to make some
Hmm.
changes and you're
Hmm.
saying, look, this is going to get there. It might not be perfect right now in the game, but look, your bat speed is 3 miles an hour higher. It might
Sure.
not be perfect in the game, but
Hmm.
your spin rate is, 3 to 5% more efficient, and you're getting another
Right.
couple of inches of movement. Go ahead.
Right. Now, my thing is that, junior college levels, we don't have the budget for Rapsodo, TrackMan, all that kind of jazz there.
Sure.
Now, we were blessed enough that my oldest son Damon, you hooked us up with a Rapsodo, and it is getting tremendous use, brother. So thank you again, man. Peace out to you right there, brother. Peace out. Always a big shout out to my guys that always help me out. But on the pitching side, I like, even though it's discontinued, I use for my Ivy Tech guys, I use the coach's eye, the
Mm,
little video thing, which is, unfortunately is discontinued. I'm probably going to be switching over to either the Pro Player AI or something like that. I might be
yeah.
switching to that to work on the biomechanics, but that's what I really use for some of our guys. Like my example, I had this one kid coming in. He was 89, 93 coming in through
Wow.
hard,
Wow.
6'4", 205. And I'm like, well, when I took video images on the coach's eye on what we did the first day to the first week, he started seeing some changes because I started working with his back leg, with his front side, try to work really hammer down on how I can make it more efficient. So after a week of doing that, he went from 89, 93, and he was 92, 94. I'm like, okay, there's some good improvement there. I like it. I like where this is going. Then I kept hammering and hammering and hammering on that the whole time with a coach's eye. And it's like, look, we're doing this, and I send them the videos. I have my players always look at their videos with the radar gun. So a month and a half later, that same young man is said 95, 97, touching 99.
That's
And
awesome.
now he's giving himself the chance to be able to do something. And my goal with him is that come February when we first start, my goal for him right now is to touch 103. which he's very capable of doing. And now he's putting himself in a
Oh,
different class that more likely this young man went from nothing to a possibility of probably getting drafted this coming summer. But
yo, you start,
all I did was do side by side comparisons of look at your body right here, look at your body right here. Let's compare the two. And at release point, I wish I had the Rapsodo, but you know what? I've known about tilt axis, spin rate, all that kind of stuff there. I've known about that a long time ago, but I used the old school way that the eye test.
eyeballs, and
Exactly right. If I don't see that spin and that ball's breaking 5 feet, yeah, that's got pretty good tilt axis. That's
yeah,
got pretty good
yeah,
bite at
yeah.
the very end. So that to me is what I use mostly for my Ivy Tech guys. And what I see is that, along with a running program, and tell your players, tell your pitchers, if they plan on going to college, they better run now. They better
Run.
know how to run. My
Okay.
program that I have for these guys running, it is not for the faint at heart. It is very tough. It is very hard.
You got to have that
Um,
stamina. You got to have it.
Absolutely. And I will love, something I'm going to do for you. I'm going to send you my Hell in the Cell program that I created like 7 years ago. That two of
I
my
can't
pitches
wait.
right now that I've actually measured, we did it for 4.5 weeks. After we did the measurements, all the stuff we did in the fall, we did
Yeah.
our program for 4.5 weeks, and we started bullpens this past week. The boys already put in 6 miles an hour on his fastball.
Wow.
It is not, but the program is hard.
Hey,
It is
you
very
got you
hard.
got to pay the cost to be the boss. That
Exactly
is
right, my
for sure.
man. Exactly
And,
right. It's not easy.
and
So
if you're not
it's
willing to
all.
put in, if you're not willing to put in the time, whether it's training your rotational skill as a hitter, or in the
Mhm.
cage, or throwing
Amen.
your pens, or running your poles, or hitting the weights, if you're not willing to spend that time, you're not going to make it anyway.
No, that's not. It's not going to be given to you. If you're hungry, if you're that hungry for it, because I mean, me being 5'10", I had to compete against guys who were 6'6". So what did I have to do for myself? I had to outwork the next guy. If I did not outwork the next guy, I lose. And I mean, and I really hate to say this, but I am not a loser. I went 23-1 in college for a reason. I did not let the other team beat me. And if they
Yeah,
try to beat me, I'm yelling at you. That's just the ball player that I was.
you got to be tough in this game. That's for sure.
Got that
Two
right.
more things and I'll let you go. So, what do
Yeah.
you think? What do you think has changed the most since you played to now that you're on the instruction side with the youth athletes that you
hmm
see? Like when you grew up,
hmm
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll speak for myself. You're a little bit older than I am. I'm 39. I didn't get my
Yeah.
first cell phone until I was 21. So I wasn't playing video games and I wasn't
hmm
playing on my cell phone and Instagramming. Not that anything's wrong with it. Okay.
No,
But
not at all.
kids are different now. So, what do
It's
you think
totally
is so
different.
different with the athlete that you were when you were a kid and your friends were when they were kids? Like, what
Mhm.
activities were you doing versus what you see now, the skinny little kids walking in your building?
You know what? We did it. I mean, I played football when I was a kid, but I quit playing football when I broke my left arm in high school playing football. That was the last bit of it. But for me, it was just get out there and playing. It was like I never, late at night when after I did my homework, I put on my old school Nintendo with the big old cartridge. I was like this big. That's what I had back then. So there's always got to be a balance with it. But for me, I was outside the whole time. I had a 10-speed bike. I rode all over town with that sucker right there to build my
Me
legs.
too. Me too.
I played basketball. I played pickup football games. I was always outside. I knew my mother's voice when it was time to eat. Javi a comer. I already knew that was my mom calling me for dinner, so I knew I had to come home. So, but I always did something outside. But I think this day and age here, it's almost like we're too digitally impaired. They're not impaired, reliant, too digitally reliant on all the stuff, all the different electronic avenues that are out there for these young kids. And not that there's anything wrong with TikTok. My son, they've done some stupid TikTok videos and they're hilarious as heck. But there's always got to be a proper balance. And also the word sacrifice is sometimes not being used in this generation nowadays. Because if you can't sacrifice time and away from all that stuff to be able to put your nose into what you got to do, how in the world are you going to be a success? You can't.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Nick Saban always says it takes what it takes,
Exactly.
and he talks about the illusion of choice.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be excellent in something, you don't actually have these choices.
No,
You
you
don't
don't.
choose to go to the weight room. It's
Yep.
the only option to be
Hmm.
excellent. You don't choose to work on your rotational skill to rack. It's your only choice to be excellent. You don't
Correct.
choose to go to sleep instead of staying out at that party till
Hmm.
2
Right.
a.m. That's your only option if you
Agreed.
really want to be excellent. And I think a lot of kids today, and even grown-ups today, they're
Hmm.
not willing to put the time in to become
No.
truly excellent at something. And
No.
that's what we've tried to do here at Baseball Rebellion. I know that's what you're trying to do at
Absolutely.
baseball and softball.
Absolutely. Agreed.
I'll tell you what, Javi, this has been great. I am so appreciative of you doing this with me,
Hey,
and
man, I've enjoyed it, man. This is fun.
this is really cool. And I know I teased earlier about, oh, he's a Shigon guy, we're gonna have a problem. And Javi texted me, he's like, dude, I'm not gonna talk crap about people. Like, come on, man, you know me. I'm not gonna put you in that spot. I was just messing around.
And
Um,
you know what? The Shigon movement. I mean, it's like politics. You have the Republicans and you have the Democrats. It's either right or left, and that's how with the Shigon versus the New Age or old school versus new school. And people say you have to adapt or die. It's like, no, you have to adapt or compromise. If you compromise, you know what? You can add both of them because I mean, I use data, I use digital stuff, I use Rapsodo for my hitters. I wish I had a Rapsodo for pitching. That would be fantastic, but I don't have that luxury. I think I'm doing pretty well with the guys that I have right now with my eye test with my old aging eyes. But there's always got to be something something of the new age can actually help the old school guys be better because we have the experience, we have the eye test, and we can actually make the correlation between the eye test and the data that we get in order to be able to help the pitchers or the hitters become better.
And not just that, the personality side of it. Like when you're in the locker room as long as you are, and you're on
Hmm.
the bus as long as you are,
Oh
you
yeah,
can kind of say like that dude's tough enough. That dude's not.
exactly.
That young lady's going to put in the time. That young lady's not.
Yep,
And it makes it easier for you to sleep at night, right? Because
yep,
I'm not going to worry about the kids that I have that don't work. You don't
yep,
work, I'm not worrying about you. I'm not thinking
yep.
about you. I don't spend my time on the people that don't spend their time on the work.
Exactly. We used
So
to we used to call that a long time ago. We used to call it the milk drinkers and the dudes. The milk drinkers, weak. The dudes, they're going to grind it out.
yeah, that's what we're trying to do here at Baseball Everybody. And I know that's what you're trying to do too.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Once again, this was Javi De Jesus. You did an awesome job. I really appreciate it. Let's definitely do this again. And I'm glad you love the rack. I'm glad it's helped you.
Absolutely, brother.
And that's not why I had you on.
Oh no,
But
no. I will fully endorse the rack because I've seen it work. And anybody who hasn't used it, you're missing out. That's all I got to say. You're missing out on something that'll help you with your posture, will help you with your turn, and will help you become a better hitter with what you have. So go get it. Baseball
thank you.
Rebellion, go knock it out.
Thank you so much. And I can't wait for you to check out my book, Learn the Turn with Ryan
I look
Mountcastle.
forward to it, my man. I'm looking forward to it.
So thanks again. And to everybody that's still here, thanks so much.